Good morning. Today we are going to be working on Access Chapter 2, and we're going to be working through 2G, which is in your book, but also attached with this video you will see the data file that you need. It's A02G Student Scholarships, so you should have that already downloaded. If you don't, you can pause this video and go ahead and download that. You also have a set of instructions that are a little more detailed than the ones in the book, so if you want to go ahead and download those instructions, you can either print them out or split your screen and you can work along with me. You can pause at any time and then restart. If I go a little faster than you, then you can pause and just finish up and then restart the video, or you can watch the whole video and then go back and try to do it on your own. I do think you will find this very helpful. Access is a program that not a lot of people are as familiar with as, say, Word or PowerPoint. So I think you'll find it beneficial if you do work through this. So I highly encourage you to do that. So you'll see that I have the A02G Student Scholarships database open on my computer. First thing I want to do is I want to save it, and I want to save it as my last name 2G Student Scholarship. So you're going to need to go to File, Save As, and make sure that you're saving the database, because we want to save the whole thing. We're not saving just a table or just a query. So you want to save the database as an Access database. So click Save As, and then you're going to want to name it your last name 2G Student Scholarship, and then save. Once you save it, you're going to need to enable the content. And if your navigation pane happens to be closed like this, go ahead and open up the navigation pane so you can see all of the items that are listed there, all of the objects. And we want to rename each table so that your last name is in the table name. So if you will point to the first table, which is the 2G Students table, right click and then choose Rename. And then if you just arrow over, it'll take you to the beginning of that, and you're just going to add your last name to that. And then enter, and do the same thing for the second table. Right click, rename, arrow over, and add your last name. Okay, we can also increase the width of this if we need to see the entire last name here. Close it up a little bit. Okay, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a one-to-many relationship between the two tables. So basically we're going to say that these two tables are related in some way. So that means they have a field in common. So the 2G Students table and the 2G Scholarships Awarded have one field that are in both of them. So we're going to go to Database Tools, and we're going to click on Relationships. And we're going to add both tables, because in order to create the relationship, we have to add both tables. So you're going to do that by clicking on the table name, clicking Add, and then click Close. We want to expand these just to make sure that we're seeing all of the fields that are in each table. So we have the 2G Scholarships table. This is all of the fields. The 2G Students table. This is all of the fields that are there. And you'll notice that Student ID is in both of these tables. So that's our common field. So in order to create this relationship, we're going to click on Student ID in the 2G Scholarships, and we're going to drag it. It's not going to look like it's dragging anything, but we're going to drag. So click and drag, and then when you get to Student ID in your Students table, release your mouse, and that's going to open up the Edit Relationships dialog box. Here, you're going to want to enforce referential integrity, and you're going to want to select to enable the two cascading options. You'll see that this is a one-to-many relationship which is what we wanted, and then you're going to click Create. Okay, we want to make sure that the Design Contextual tab is selected, and we're going to click on Relationship Report. So what this does is it gives us a printable report that we can see which fields are in each table and how they're related. Okay, so we want to be able to print this with normal margins. So you're going to go over and click on Margins and then click Normal, and you'll see it kind of shifts down just a little bit. And then we're going to want to save. So we're going to click on the Save button here, and it opens the Save As dialog box. Now this is different than saving the entire database. This is just saving one particular object in the database. And we're going to keep the default name and click OK. And then we're going to close the objects that we have open. So we have the relationship report and the relationship open. So we're going to close those two things. And we're going to open the 2G students table. And you'll see all of the fields. We have all of the pieces of information, the student ID for everybody, first name, last name. So you'll see all the fields in the table. If you look at the very last record, you'll see that the student ID is all 9s. We're going to change that, and we're going to change it so that the last ID is 28390403. And then just press the down arrow. We don't have to click Save on tables, because when we save a table, or when we make a change to a table, it's automatically saved. So the next thing, this is step 3 that we're asked to do, is to create a query in Query Design View using the 2G Scholarships Awarded table to answer the question. Queries are simply questions that we ask a database. That is really the whole purpose of this chapter, is to teach you how to ask a database questions and get the answer that you want. So we want to ask this database, what is the scholarship name, amount, and major for scholarships greater than or equal to 500 sorted in ascending order by the scholarship name field? That sounds huge. Sounds like there's so much information there. So let's start at the very beginning. So the first thing we have to do is go to Create, and it tells us to use Query Design. And the question tells us to use the 2G Scholarship Awarded table. So we're going to click on that table, we're going to click Add, and then we're going to click Close. Again, we're going to expand this so that we can see all of the fields. Now the question is, what is the scholarship name, amount, and major for scholarships greater than or equal to 500 sorted in ascending order by scholarship name field? So if we break that question apart, we see exactly which fields we're going to need in order to create this query. So we need to know the scholarship name, so I'm going to double click that. You'll see it's added in our query design down here. We need amount, and we need major. Now, the only scholarships that we want are the ones that are greater than or equal to 500. So we have to go to the criteria row down here in our design grid. And in the amount, we're going to put the greater than symbol or equal to. So it's greater than or equal to 500. And it tells us to sort them in ascending order by scholarship name. Ascending order just means alphabetical order. So we're going to go to scholarship name, and we're going to choose ascending in the sort row. So we've now done everything we've asked it. This question is asked of us. We're going to know the scholarship name, amount, and major for all scholarships that are greater than $500 or equal to $500, and they're going to be sorted alphabetically. So we're going to click Run and see if this works. And we'll see that we have the scholarships names. They are in alphabetical order. All of the amounts are $500 or greater, and it lists the major. So basically what this does is it lets us get just the information that we're looking for. We're not looking for all of those other, the name of the student and all of that stuff, student ID. We're just looking for which scholarships are more than $500, and what major do you have to be in to get those? Okay, so we've gotten that. So now we want to save this query. All we have to do is click the Save button, and the Save As box will pop up, and you'll see Query Name. You want to save this with your last name and 2G, AMT, that's for amount, $500 or more. Query. And click OK. So now over here we have a new query that's listed under this Branham 2G scholarships awarded. So now we have a query. All right, we're going to leave that query open because we're going to use that query to create another query. Okay, so we're going to use the 2G amount query, and we're going to create a new query that's going to be named Last Name 2G Awards Fourth Quarter Query to answer the question, which scholarships, so we know we're going to need the scholarship name, were awarded between October 1st, 2019 and December 31st, 2019. What amount, so we're going to need amount, and for which student ID, sorted in ascending order by the award date field. Again, that sounds like so much information, but if we break it down, we'll see that I'm going to go ahead and close this table. And I'm going to go to my navigation pane, and I'm going to right-click this query, and I'm going to choose to copy it because, again, we're going to use this query to make a new query. So I'm going to copy it. And in the white area at the bottom of the navigation pane, so down here, we're going to choose Paste. And it's going to open up the Paste As. And so we're going to name this, we're going to take off Copy Of, and we're going to name this with your last name, 2G Awards Fourth Quarter QTR Query, and click OK. So now we have another query here. We're going to go ahead and open that one. It's going to be the exact same as this one because all we did was copy it. Okay. So we want to open it in Design View. So we've got it open right now in Data Sheet View, but we're going to want to switch to Design View. Make sure that your Branham 2G Awards query is the one that we have, fourth quarter. Okay, and we need to add a couple of fields because our question says that we need the student ID and the award date. So we're going to double click on student ID. You'll see it's added to the end. And we're going to double click on award date, and you'll see that's added to the end. All right. Now, the criteria that we're looking for here is that the scholarships were awarded between 10/1/19 and 12/31/19. So we're going to go to the criteria for award date, and we're going to type between 10/1/19, the word and 12/31/19. Okay, and we want to know what amount, but here we have the amount to be greater than or equal to 500. We want to take out that criteria because we want to know all amounts. Okay, and it also tells us that we want to sort it in ascending order by the award date field. Okay, so we're going to have to go to the award date field, go to the sort row, and choose ascending. Okay, you'll notice that in this particular scholarship query, it doesn't ask us to show the major. It says which scholarships were awarded for what dates, for which students. Okay, so we don't need the major, so we're going to click this button that says show, and it'll deselect it. So now that won't show up. Okay, now we're going to click run. And you should now only get 5 records that match the criteria. And what you'll see is they're sorted by the award date, and they're sorted still by scholarship name, and we no longer see major. So we're going to save this query and close it. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we are now in number 5. We're going to create a query in Design View using the 2G Scholarships Awarded table to answer the question which scholarships, so that's scholarship name, were awarded for either math or business majors, so that's the major, for amounts of more than $200, sorted in descending order by the amount field. So again, let's just start from the beginning, go to Create, Query, and we are using the Scholarships Awarded table again. So we're going to add that, and then close, and then we're going to increase the size. And it tells us that we need the scholarship name, the amount, and the major, because we want to know which ones were for business or math. Okay, the criteria for the question said that we want to know the amounts more than 200. So we're going to go to the criteria for amount, and we're going to put in greater than 200. You'll notice this time we did not use the equal sign because it did not say greater than or equal to 200. It just said greater than 200. Okay, for the major, what was our criteria? We said it needed to be either math or business, right? So we're going to type in math or business. And it tells us that we want to sort the amount in descending order. So we're going to have the largest amount first, all the way down to the smallest amount. All right, so we have the scholarship name, the amount, as long as it's greater than $200 in descending order for only the majors math or business. You'll see that Access automatically put the quotes around our or here. We don't have to remember to put that in. You can just type math or business and it'll put the quotes in for you. So now if you run the query, you should get 4 records. Okay, and you'll see scholarships listed, nothing that is less than $200 or equal to $200, and only things that were business and math were displayed. Okay, we want to save that. Actually, I'm looking at the instructions again, and it just says to close the query, so I'm going to just close the query. Okay, number 6. We're going to create a query in Query Design. So let's go ahead and go to Create, Query Design. You should be starting to get pretty good at this by now. This time we're going to use the 2G Students table. And we're going to add that. And we're going to close. And it says we want it, let's first of all make this a little bigger so we can see all the fields. What is the city, the student ID, first name and last name of students from cities that begin with the letter L, sorted in ascending order by the city field and by the last name field? Okay, so again, lots of information. So let's see which fields we need to add. We need to know the city. And again, I'm just going through the question here. We need to know the city, and we need to know the student ID, and the first name and the last name of students from cities that begin with the letter L. So, a lot of times when I teach this, I have students that go to criteria and they know to go ahead and type L in the criteria. So they type L and they just leave it as that. But you really can't do that because there are no cities L. What you want is a city that begins with the letter L. So L and then anything after that. So it could be the city of Lee, L-E-E, or it can be a city of Lancaster. So it could be a long word, it could be a short word. So we want anything that starts with L and has anything after it. So our anything character is called a wildcard, and it's the asterisk key. So L asterisk in city. That's called a wildcard. Okay. And it says we want them sorted in ascending order by city. Ascending by city. And ascending by last name. So how are we going to sort in ascending in two different ways? I'll show you when we run this. So let's run this. And we should get 5 records. Okay? So those records come up. We've got the city. Let me go back to my design view. And I accidentally unchecked city to show. So I need to put a check mark in there. Yours may already be there, but I'm going to run this again now. All right, so there's my city. So I have city, student ID, first name, and last name. So once you run a query, it was a mistake, but it was actually a good mistake to make. Once you run a query, if you realize that it's not quite what you were looking for, you can always go back to design view, and you can just make any changes here you want and run it again. So when I ran it the first time, I realized my city didn't show. So I had to go back to here, put a check mark in show, and then I just run it again and it shows up. So I asked you how we could sort in 2 different fields. So it sorts by city first. That's simply because city comes first in this grid. So it'll have all the cities in alphabetical order. So let's see if that happened. Yes. L-E, 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 L-O, L-O. So all the Leanders are together and all of the Lockharts are together. Then we ask it to sort by last name. So when we look at all of the Leanders, there's 3 of them. They're in alphabetical order by last name. B, R-E, and R-I. All of the Lockharts are together, and then they're sorted by last name, Larson and Sharp. Okay, so now we're going to close that query. So number 7 tells us to create a query in design view. So again, getting pretty good at this part. Query design. We're using the students table again. So we're going to add that, close. We're going to expand this out a little bit. And it says which students have the postal code missing. Okay, so what do we need to know here? We just need the student ID and we need the postal code. All right, so we're going to add student ID and we're going to add postal code. Now, what is our criteria? How do we put in a criteria for missing? Okay, so let's go to postal code, and what we want to type in here is null, N-U-L-L. That means it's blank. When you hear somebody say a null screen on your computer, you're typically thinking of that, just that gray screen. So that's kind of empty. So when we're talking about how do we look for a field that is empty, the criteria is null. Okay, so let's run this query now, and we see that we have 3 students who have a missing postal code. Okay, so you'll see that there's nothing in there because it is null. So these 3 students need their zip code put in. Okay, let's close that query. Okay, now we're going to get into some things called calculated queries. This is number 8. Okay, number 8 says the Board of Trustees will donate an amount equal to 50%, so half of each scholarship amount. So that means if a scholarship is $500, the Board of Trustees will donate an additional $250 because that's half of 500. You're going to create a query in Design View. So create query design. And we're going to use both tables here. So we're going to add scholarships and we're going to add students, and then we're going to close. And we're going to expand these so we can see all of our fields. You'll see our relationship is still there. And this is the question we need to answer. In ascending order by scholarship name, so we know we have to add scholarship name, including the first and last name of the scholarship recipient, so we know we're going to need first and last name, what will be the total value of each scholarship if the Board of Trustees donates an additional 50% of each award paid to students? Change the property settings of the appropriate fields to display with currency format with 0 decimal places and apply best fit to the columns. So let's start with, what do we even need to add? Okay, so we know we need scholarship name. So that's going to come from the scholarship table. Double click it. And it said we need the first name and the last name. And we're really looking for a total amount. But in order to get that total amount, remember I told you if it was a $500 scholarship, then the Board of Trustees is going to add another $250. So what is the total? Well, in order to get that total, we have to know the amount. So we need to go ahead and add the amount field as well. All right, so now we have to calculate that total amount. We don't have a field for that, so we have to create what is called a calculated field. Okay, so in your design grid, in the column to the right of amount, you're going to right click and you're going to choose zoom. And basically that lets us type in what we want. So here's what we're going to key. We're going to key the word board donation. And we're going to put a colon. Now, what this does is that gives the field a name. So here's, we have scholarship name, we have first name, we have last name, we have amount. When we type board donation and type a colon, that means the name of the new field that we're calculating or that we're putting in is going to be board donation. And how are we going to calculate this board donation? Well, it's 50% of the original amount, right? So we're going to put in brackets amount. And the reason we're putting that in brackets is because that's a field that's already created. We're going to use this field. And we're going to multiply that. So we're going to put the multiply sign, which is the asterisk, by 0.5, which is 50%. You could put 0.50 if you wanted. So we're going to have a new field called board donation, and it's going to be the amount times 50%. And we're going to click OK. Now, the instructions don't tell you that you have to do this, but I'm just going to run this really quick to show you what happens. See, we have a new field, board donation, and you'll see that it's taken 300, multiplied it by 0.5, it gets 150. 750 is 375. I just wanted to show you that. So let's go back to Design View. It didn't ask us really for the board donation. What it asked us for was the total amount. But in order to get the total amount, we have to take the amount and we have to know how much the board is donating as well. So now we have to create a new calculated field. So we're going to go to the column to the right of board donation. We are going to right click and we're going to choose zoom again. And this time we're going to key total donation with a colon. That gives us our field name. That's total donation. And we're going to use two fields now, right? We're going to use amount plus, because we're going to add that too. And what was the other field that we just created? It's board donation. Now, if you end up having some trouble with this, what you may find, I just use curly braces, sorry. What you may find is that you've typed in something wrong. Sorry. So you may find if you misspell something, it's not gonna know what you mean. So if you misspell amount and you put A-M-O-O-N-T, it's going to look for a field, name that, and you're not going to have it, so it's not going to work for you. So, and I just realized I put in an equal sign instead of a plus sign. The joys of recording as you do something. Okay, so we've got amount plus board donation, and we're going to click OK. And you'll see total donation pops up here. We just want to make sure that this works again. So I'm going to go ahead here and run it. And I see that, yes, 300 plus 150 is 450. So I'm going to go back to my design view. And we're going to click on board donation. And then we're going to click the design tab. And then we're going to click on property sheet. And in format, we're going to click and get the down arrow, and we're going to choose currency because this is a dollar amount, so we want to show up with dollar signs. And then we're going to close that property sheet. We're going to do the same thing for total donation. So again, make sure your design tab is selected. Go to property sheet and go to format and choose currency. And then we're going to close the property sheet. You want to make sure that your insertion point is in the right column when you do that. Otherwise, you may get the design sheet for the entire query. So we're going to run the query. And make sure that our dollar signs are showing up, and they are. So we're going to go back, and this time you're going to sort the scholarship name in ascending order. So we're going to go to scholarship name, choose ascending, and then we're going to run. And you should see that the Amanda Snyder Foundation Scholarship, the board donation is $125, and the total donation is $375. Okay. We're going to select the entire sheet by clicking in the upper left block of the table. That's this one. Okay. And we're going to go to our home tab if we're not already there. And we're going to click on More under Records. And we're going to go to Field Width. And this is something you learned in the last chapter. And we're going to best fit so that everything is a nice fit, that there's nothing that's too wide or too narrow for everything to fit. Okay. And we're going to save this as, so click on Save. You're going to save it as last name 2G board donation query. And click OK. So that was a lot, okay? So step 9, we're going to close this query, and we're going to create a query in Query Design. Again, should be used to this by now. Create query. We're going to use the 2G Scholarships Awarded table. And we're going to expand that. And the sum aggregate function. So we're going to use the sum aggregate function to answer the question. For each major, what is the total scholarship amount? Sorted in descending order by the amount field. So basically what we need to do is we need to know the major, and we want a total amount. So if you're a business major, what is the total amount of scholarships that are available to you? If you're a math major, what's the total amount? So we're going to add the fields major and amount by double clicking those. And in the amount column, you are going to right click and you're going to choose totals. Okay, that's going to give you a total row that you haven't had before. Okay, in the total row in the amount column, you're going to click the down arrow and you're going to choose sum because we want to add all of the amounts for each major. In the amount field, we want to sort in descending order. And we want to run that and see what happens. So now, instead of having every scholarship listed like business, 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 we have business once and we have a total. So the highest amount is for a history major and there's $1,850. Okay, we're going to select the entire sheet again by clicking in that upper left block. We're going to go to more again, and we're going to go to field width, and we're going to go to best fit again, and click OK. And then we're going to save this table as last name 2G amount by major query. And click OK. And we're going to close that query. Okay, number 10, we're going to do something just a little bit different. We're going to create what's called a crosstab query. And we're going to do this by using the query wizard. So if you will click create and then go to query wizard. A wizard, as you probably already know, is just a set of steps that will walk you through the process of creating something. So it could be a template, it could be a query like this, you could be trying to do a resume. So there's all kinds of things that have wizards. So this is just going to walk us through creating what's called a crosstab query. Okay, so we're going to choose crosstab and click OK. And we want the scholarships awarded table. So let's make sure that the scholarships awarded table is selected. And we're going to click next. So what is this crosstab query asking of us? So we want to select the student ID as the row headings and the major as the column headings. And we're going to get a sum amount. Okay, so we're going to sum the amount field. And this query is going to answer the questions, what are the total scholarships amounts paid by each student and by each major? So there actually is a lot of information. Basically, this crosstab query sets up a grid. So we're going to see each student and major and this total scholarship amount. Okay, so once we get to this step, you're going to choose student ID, and you're going to move this over to selected fields by clicking this arrow. So this is going to be your row headings, and you'll see here it shows that these are all, it's going to be your student IDs are going to be here. So we're going to click next. Now we have to choose what our column headings are going to be. So our column headings are going to be the major, and click next. And then here, this is how we're going to figure out the amounts that are summed. So you're going to click amount, and you'll see that changes because this is text. So when you choose amount, you can choose the option for sum. and click Next. You're going to name the query last name 2G, student ID, and major Crosstab query. And then you're going to click Finish with View the Query selected. So this creates a grid, and basically it shows you each student ID, and you'll see that not every box is filled in. So this particular student got a total amount of $100 of scholarships. So you'll see that they didn't get anything for art or biology or business because this person is obviously a CIS major. So let's look at the third one. This person got $1,050. They didn't get anything for art. They got biology and CIS. So maybe they're a double major. Okay. So this is what a crosstab query looks like. That's why you can fit so much information into it. You got the student ID on the side, you've got the majors across the top, you've got your total, so you know exactly how much each student got, and then it's placed within the grid where it fits. Okay, we're going to apply best fit to this. So we're going to select the entire table, go to the Home tab, click More, Field Width, Best Fit, and you'll see it shrinks up a lot. And we're going to save, and then we're going to close this query. Okay, number 11. We're going to create a query in Query Design. So we're going back to Query Design, something you're familiar with. And we're going to use the 2G Scholarship Awarded table. And we're going to have it prompt you to enter criteria to answer a question each time. So let's go ahead and add the scholarships awarded table, and then close and expand this. So we want to answer the question, what is the scholarship name and amount for a major sorted in ascending order by the scholarship name field? Okay, so it just says a major. What does that mean? That means each time we run this query, we're going to get to put in the major that we want. Okay, so you're going to add the 2G scholarships awarded table. We're going to add the fields, scholarship name, because we need the scholarship name. We're going to add the amount and the major, and that gives us everything we want. Now, it says for a major. Remember, I told you that doesn't really, what major? We're going to answer that question each time we run the query. So in the criteria box, this is called a parameter query. In the criteria box, you're going to put in brackets, enter a major. Okay, and that's the only criteria we have. Actually, it says to sort, in ascending order by scholarship name. So we're going to go to ascending order by scholarship name. So sort ascending. Now, when we run this, look what happens. We get enter a major. Okay, so let's type in history and click OK. And you'll see that history are the only ones that show up, and you should get 4 of them. So I can go back to design view, and I can run this again. It's going to ask me again, enter a major. I'm going to put art this time, and it gives me the 3 people, or the 3 art scholarships. Okay, I can go back, I can run it again, and this time I can put business. And I get all the business scholarships. Now I do want to show you, just for reference, what happens if you misspell. So let's say I'm going to put in math and I put MATTH. Nothing's going to show up because MATTH is not a major. But I can go back and correct that. and it'll show up the scholarships for math. Okay, so I'm going to save this query as last name 2G parameter query, and click OK. And then I'm going to close Now, in your navigation pane, there should be 11 objects. Be sure that all objects names fully displayed. Now your instructions are going to say ask your instructor to come check your work. Obviously, we're doing this online, so we're just going to trust that you're doing this because it really will be beneficial to you if you work through this. Whether you did it with me or whether you go back and do it later, I think will find it tremendously beneficial. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to your instructor. They are all willing to help you and are very knowledgeable about all of these topics. So just reach out to your instructor if you have any questions. I hope you are all staying safe and happy with this craziness that is the coronavirus. So good luck on your access.